Okay, hello YouTube. Today I want to talk about like one of the biggest sins that you can make in chess, in my personal opinion, which is closing your eyes and basically just playing the opening without thinking. And this is something that players have done for a really long time. They did it back when I was playing Scholastic chess. They probably did it before that. They probably did it back in the 1960s. They probably did this back in the 1860s, where you just kind of close your eyes and you try to play the first 5 or 6 moves in your sleep. Like maybe you plan on playing like e4, and then no matter what they do, you're going to play knight f3, knight bishop c4, knight c3, d3, etc. Or maybe you're a system player where no matter what, you just want to play the London system, and you're going to play bishop f4, and then no matter what they do, you're going to play your system. You're going to play e3, c3, knight f3, etc. Well, back in the 90s, back in the mid 90s, I attended this chess camp that was being taught by a grandmaster by the name of Gregory Serper. And he recounted this story basically about why you should never do that, why you should never just close your eyes and play the opening without thinking, why it was so important to always be calculating and assessing in every position and just never close your eyes and never trust that you can just play the same 6 or 7 moves no matter what. And he said, the truth is, this doesn't just happen with weaker players. He says grandmasters make this mistake as well. And he was recounting a story about how he was playing a game in a tournament, and they were playing a very complicated opening. It was actually a Botvinnik semi-Slav. So the game started out d4, d5, c4, c6. We have a Slav. We have knight f3, knight f6. We have knight c3, e6 begins the semi-Slav. And then we have bishop g5, dc4, e4, b5 begins the Botvinnik variation of the semi-Slav, which is this super complicated, ridiculous variation of the semi-Slav. And, back then people played this variation a lot. And of course, people would lean on what people had played previously, and this was, of course, what we called just, playing theory. So people would just play the theory, and they would just play the theory over and over again, and they would just follow what other people had done. So the line would just continue. White would play e5, you would have h6, bishop h4, g5, and then this was the normal move. You would play knight g5, hg5, bishop g5, and you've sacrificed a piece, but you're getting the piece back because, of course, this piece is pinned and it's being attacked, and the position is still very, very strange. So knight on b to d7, and now there's kind of like two big lines here. You can see here in the master's database, you have e takes f6 and you have g3 are both considered moves, but back then there was this line e takes f6, bishop to b7, g3, c5, and of course you can see this is still a very popular line today. D5 is kind of forced, and now a bunch of moves were kind of popular here, but you see the one that kind of jumps out is this move knight takes f6. This was leading to a ton of draws, just an absolute ton of draws. So grandmasters started playing this move, and they started repeating the theory of other grandmasters. This was back in the early 90s. And they started repeating the theory of other grandmasters because people were getting so many easy draws with the black pieces, starting with knight f6. And of course, on the grandmaster level and just on the professional level in general, if you can get easy draws with black, that is a really good thing. You're going to, and if you can do it without putting in any energy at all, these guys were just basically repeating moves from memory, and they never had to turn their brain on. They could take their brain and shut it off for the whole game. So this was such a great thing for all these grandmasters. So they were all following this. They were playing knight f6, and then bishop g2 got played, bishop e7, and then coming up here is the main idea is after castles, they intended knight d5, bishop takes e7, and then king takes e7 is the primary idea. And you can see here we're still in very serious draw territory. So knight takes b5 was the move, and then people were playing queen b6, hitting the knight, hitting the pawn behind it. Knight a3 would get played, setting up to play this move, knight to c4. Now here there are two serious moves here for black. There's pawn to c3, and there's this crazy looking rook h4. Well, this crazy looking rook h4 was this move that was leading to so many draws. And actually, it's not a bad move, and actually neither move is a bad move. Like if I turn the engine on right now, the engine, like even modern engines, have a lot of trouble with these positions. Like the engines will actually hop around quite a bit. But like it says pawn to c3 is perfectly fine, and then you can see here's Gregory Serper's game. It pops up with pawn to c3, and this is the game that he was talking about when he was telling the story. Because when he was telling us the story about this game that he played back in 1993, he was talking about getting to this position, and he thought for a while and he wasn't sure which move to play. Like he was thinking about playing rook h4, and he was also thinking about playing pawn to c3. And he knew that a lot of guys were playing rook h4 and they were getting easy draws. But he didn't know a whole lot about it. So he went ahead and he decided to play pawn to c3 instead. And as you can see, if you look at this game, the result, he ended up with a draw. And what it was a cautionary tale, because he said, if I'd repeated what other people had done, because right after the game, he said he was on the plane with his opponent, and he said, yeah, maybe I could have just played rook h4 and gotten a much easier draw. And of course, he could have played rook h4, and of course, I mean, you're looking at the computer assessment going, oh, the computer still says advantage white, but of course, actually, the computer jumps around a little bit on this, because rook h4 is actually a very complicated move. I mean, for starters, you can't just take the rook. You can't play g takes h4, because rook to g8 is actually very, very strong. So like rook g8 pins the bishop to the king, and then after, say, knight takes, you would have something like queen c8, queen b3, knight f4, and you're hitting this bishop with absolutely everything. And after f3, and somehow, in the only game this was played, white managed to win, which is absolutely insane, because even just rook takes g2, king h1, and then bishop d5 should be complete total equality according to the engine. The engine is giving basically just double zeros here. But black is, of course, doing just fine. So sacrificing the rook is no big deal. But what people were actually playing back then is they were continually playing this move queen d2 with white, because they were just following what everybody else did. And it makes sense. The move prevents c3 and it protects the b2 square. But of course, rook c1 is potentially a better move. But okay, we'll just do what everybody else did. We're going to play, queen to t2. And then what everybody was doing back then is they were playing this move, rook to g8. Now, today we know that we can just play knight f4 and apparently achieve a draw. Like, you can just follow up with knight f4. This is what some good players have been doing, and they're getting an equal position with it. But back then they were trying rook g8, and then people were playing f4, and then the line that everybody thought was good for black was knight takes f4, rook takes f4, and I'm about to turn off the engine just so that you can use your brain in this position. And then we're going to have rook takes f4, queen takes f4, and then everybody was playing queen b2 with black. They were thinking that this line was unsound for white because black could play queen b2 and black could threaten, mate and threaten the knight and threaten the rook. Looks good, right? So pause the video, take a second, see if you can find what white's next move should be. So if you used your brain like you're supposed to and didn't just do what other people had done, you notice this has actually been done before. The correct move here is the move queen to d6 check, winning. And actually, if you turn on the engine immediately gives queen d6. But of course, previously somebody had played queen c7, and that game ended in a draw, and that looks pretty good, right? I mean, queen c7, it is a draw. The position is completely equal after queen c7. But queen d6 is completely winning, and the whole point is once we play queen d6, when the king takes the queen, and he has to take the queen, knight c4 check forks the king and queen. And of course, this is a really long variation. We're on like move 24, and we've got these grandmasters that are still basically playing theory against each other and turning their brains off. But sometimes grandmasters do that where they turn their brains off for 24 moves. And when grandmasters do it, it's bad, but it's just as bad when we do it. And we should never turn our brains off for any amount of time when we're playing chess, whether it's for 8 moves or whether it's for 25 moves of theory. If you've got it computer checked, that's one thing. But for the most part, you always need to be thinking while you're playing, and you should not take anything for granted that you can just play a move and everything's going to be okay. You should be thinking on every single move, and you definitely don't want to play the same 8 moves without even looking at your opponent's moves and assuming that your moves are going to be okay. And that was the moral of the story that we all got from Gregory Serper, and that's why I'm sharing that story and trying to share it kind of the exact same way that he told all of us back then, and showing the exact same game in the exact same position and the exact same variation that he learned it from, and I'm trying to share that with you so that you can learn basically the same thing. Don't turn your brain off. Always be calculating, always be assessing, and don't make these mistakes so that you can spot these ideas in critical positions and not miss your opportunity to win the game, and certainly not lose the game without ever feeling like you ever got a chance to play a move on your own. Well, anyways, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you learned something new about chess, and I hope you can learn you use some of these ideas in your own games. Thank you very much for watching.